like a crack in the couch, people change.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. Today we're going to be doing a show that generally is pretty popular with you guys, and that's looking at players who are heading into their third year in the NBA, a time when many players break out, whether that's from understanding the league better, from having everything slow down, from getting a larger opportunity on their team, or a combination of both those things. But third and fourth year players are often where big breakouts come. We're going to be doing fourth year players later in the week as well. So today, Michael Bolton, he wants to hear all about these third-year guys.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. Of course, these are the players who are rookies in the 2017-18 season. A lot of real studs in this group and a lot of guys poised for some pretty big seasons coming up in the 2019-20 NBA season. Again, if you want to be a part of the Red Rock Challenge Leagues, patreon.com/redrock_bball to get priority access to whichever league you prefer, and then public access will come in the coming weeks. I'm also going to be setting up some best ball leagues as well, so information for those will come out in the next week or two as well. Let's look at these third-year players, though. As I said, this is the time when so many players tend to take big steps forward. A lot of these guys are already real studs. And we had five of these players finish in the top 60 last year already. So how much better can they get? We had 7 top 100 guys out of these second-year players, and now they're heading into their third season. Let's see how good they can get. The number one player of this group is Ben Simmons, who was the 34th ranked player last season. With Jimmy Butler general soreness out of Philadelphia, is there a chance that Simmons sees his usage rise? He had just a 21% usage. Now Butler gets replaced by Joshie Richardson. So Joshie Richardson replaced JJ Redick. Al Horford replaces Jim Butler. But both of those guys, Horford and Richardson, aren't necessarily high usage guys. We know Toby Harris and Joel Embiid will handle the bulk there. But I can see Simmons' usage going up, even if it's 1 or 2 percentage points. He averaged 17 points. 20 points per game. Could he get to it? Yes. Will he get to it? I'm not sure. But one thing I think we'll see is he had 17, 9, and 8 last year, Benny Simmons. I think that looking at him as an 18, 9, and 9 player is more realistic. Butler did a lot of ball handling for the Sixers last season, so that extra 1 to 1 assist per game from Simmons could come. The extra 1 to 2 points per game. Look, 2 points per game is 1 layup a game. It's not much. So I could see Simmons maybe even at 19, 9, and 9. That's a real possibility. Free throw shooting, definitely an issue, and it causes consternation in roto leagues. In head-to-head, you can punt that, and in points leagues, it doesn't matter that much, although his value, Simmons, is not as high in points leagues as what it is in category leagues. And of course, will he ever hit a 3? I predicted this last year. I was wrong. I'm going to predict it again this year. I think he will hit a 3-pointer this season. Will he regularly take them? No. Will he ever regularly take them in the NBA? Probably. I just don't know when that'll be. I think he will hit a 3 this season, and it's not going to have any impact in fantasy basketball whatsoever. The next guy we look at, a player who was a little bit disappointing in terms of where we thought he could go last year, is the Donovan Mitchell.
He's good.
I thought that he could push up into the top 20 last year. It didn't happen, obviously. He ended the year as the 43rd ranked player. He still improved over his rookie season, averaged an additional 3 points per game, more assists, more rebounds. The problem was his shooting. His true shooting actually dropped a little bit, and we often see guys from their first to second year take big leaps up in true shooting. That didn't happen for Mitchell. Now, playing alongside Mike Conley this year, will we see that true shooting rise? Now, one thing we have to pay attention to is he had a usage Mitchell last season of 32%. With the arrival of Conley, I would have to imagine that we see, and even Bojan Bogdanovic to a smaller degree, I think that usage is going to come more down to what he did as a rookie, whereas at 30, 29. But I also think that true shooting can go from 54% up to 56 or 57. And that's going to be key. The real issue there with Mitchell is he improved his 3-point shooting by 2 percentage points from 34 to 36, but his 2-pointers fell by a bit over 3 percentage points, down to 47. If that goes back to the 50 that he shot as a rookie, the 3-point percentage continues to improve or at least stays the same, then we see a guy that that offset in usage will be offset by the increase in efficiency, and it overall increases his value. With Conley around, getting up to, say, 5 assists per game might be a struggle for Mitchell. And we saw last year when he played without a point guard, his free throw attempt rate went through the roof. And of course, now he's got Conley, so that's probably not going to happen at 5 free throw attempts per game last season. But over the last 38 games, he was at 6.4. He is, I think, peak situation for Mitchell can be a 6.5 to 7 free throw attempts per game guy. I just reckon we might be a couple of seasons off from him being that top 20 guy with Conley in town. DeAaron Fox of the Sacramento Kings, another player heading into his third year. He was the 48th ranked player last season, averaging 17, 4, and 7 with 1.6 steals on 46 and 73% shooting. Hit only a 3 a game. Now, he shot his threes at 37%, but his volume is very low. So it's almost a little bit of a Brandon Ingram situation. We look at Ingram as a guy who sometimes has this, oh, look, he shot 38% from 3, but it's on such minimal attempts. And that's sort of what it was for Fox, not a high-volume three-point shooter. Of course, Fox was a guy that was underdrafted significantly last season. I had him in quite a few of my leagues. That's not going to be the case this year. And we have to look, where can he get better? He had a usage of 24% last season, which was only marginally above his rookie year. In fact, he went from 23.2 usage to 23.6, so really not that much of a change. The Kings, they've got Harrison Barnes now for a full season. Barnesy. And then the arrival of the Undertaker, Dwayne Dedmon, at center instead of Willie Cauley-Stein there. So it's not a huge change to how this lineup is going to look. There are a couple of moves there. Can Fox go from 24 usage to 26? That's going to be the next step up. Can he keep that massive improvement in his efficiency? Now, his true shooting went from 48 to 54. Harkening back to what I said about Don Mitchell, that's what second-year guys often do, is take that big step. But can he take the next step from 54 to league average, 57, that sort of a mark? That's probably going to be tougher. His assists are great. His steals are great. The rebounds had a big step up. All that stuff is really strong from Fox. Doubled his blocks as well as a second-year guy. I think there is I haven't seen any ADP numbers because that stuff's not out yet. I think there is a risk that he ends up being a little bit overdrafted and people reach into the second round, maybe third round for Fox. But him getting into the top 40 is not a crazy situation. He's still he only played 31 minutes a night. That could easily go to 32 or 33 under Luke Walton in Sacramento this season. So that could be enough to push him into third round territory out of the fourth round where he was sitting this year. I know all you guys are playing fantasy basketball, but if you also play fantasy football, make sure you're listening to Vinny Iyer on Locked On Fantasy Football. Vinny gives you the edge over 20 years covering fantasy football. Don't listen to what everyone else listens to, otherwise all your teams are going to be the same. Get the edge from Vinny that will put you ahead on draft day and put you ahead all season long. Locked On Fantasy Football, you can find it on your favorite podcast provider. Let's go to the next guy we're going to look at, and it's one of my favorite players heading into this season. It's the Baptist, John Collins. Only 30 minutes a game last year for Collins and still the 51st ranked player. I just went on Locked On Hawks with Brad Rowland and we talked about Collins, and people look at his numbers and go, yeah, 19.5 and 9.8 rebounds, basically 20 and 10 in 30 minutes. That's great. And they go, what about the defense? And you know what? 0.4 steals and 0.6 blocks doesn't cut it. But as I said to Brad yesterday, Collins' lack of steals was comical. For the entirety of the 2018 portion of the season, so October, November, December, he was injured for October, so November and December, all of that time, he had one steal in all of that time. In those 2 months of play, he had one steal. Those sort of numbers are impossible to happen on the downside. It's like when someone comes out and has a 2-week stretch of shooting 12% from 3. It's not going to continue. So in the second half of the season, we saw multiple block games from Collins. 0.6 to 0.7 steals per game over the second half. Now, he averaged over 1 steal a game. Over 1 block a game and about a steal a game as a rookie as well. Probably need to double check those numbers because they're coming off the top of my head. 0.6 steals and 1.1 blocks as a rookie. He can easily get back to those numbers and exceed them. The 30 minutes a game, Travis Schlenk said he's going to play 35 a game potentially. He, to me, is pushing into almost minimum third round territory, John Collins. And if he finishes a top 25 guy, I wouldn't be surprised at all. If he plays more center, maybe that actually improves his block numbers as well. He should easily exceed 20 and 10 this year. The defensive numbers should push back up, and just those extra minutes, it's going to be massive for him. So I think that out of these 4 guys that I've spoken about, there's a realistic scenario where Collins is the number 1 player out of that group. It probably won't happen, but And when I'm looking at when I project all these guys out, which I haven't finished doing at Basketball Monster, I think he could be the number one third-year player. Lauri Markkanen of the Chicago Bulls took some steps forward last year. 32 minutes a night, probably the most encouraging thing there. 19-9 with over 2 threes. Of course, his lack of defensive stats, they're more troubling to me than what John Collins's are, because that's the problem with Markkanen, is he's never shown an ability to put up big defensive numbers. And again, we didn't see that. His field goal percentage was poor, 43%, which included 36% on threes. It's just these twos weren't really there. Now, he had a red-hot stretch at one point in February where he went 30-9, 30-10, 31-18, 20-11, 20-17, 21-10, 25-11, 35-15, 26-12, 22-10, and 31-17, which is obviously ludicrous in terms of the amount of production that he was putting up during that time. And then he had that they played the Hawks in that 5-4 overtime game. And that really wrecked him. After that, in that game where he had 31-17 and played 54 minutes, he didn't get to 20 points in any game outside of a game against the Wizards where he had 32 points. And then he had to be shut down for the season with fatigue and heart problems. And that really did root him in that game. It killed his overall value. Now, I'm not sure that 10 or 12 game sample from Markkanen is something that we can expect regularly. His lack of defense and poor field goal percentage can overall hold him back. But if he was a 20-10 guy this season with 2.7 threes, I don't think that's completely ridiculous, but the low assists, steals, and blocks, very Ryan Anderson-y like, that could be an overall capper on his value. But he's going to have a huge opportunity this season in Chicago. Even though Thad Young is there, that's not going to impact Markkanen's minutes. We're going to see big minutes, and hopefully he can really put a stamp on this team. And that 25% usage that he had, still a little bit low in my opinion, but up 3 percentage points from his rookie season, that can go to 26, 27, and he can really start to stamp himself on the game. Another guy, probably a little bit like Donovan Mitchell, that overall people thought he was disappointing. Now, I thought that his ADP was way too high coming into the season, and that's Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics. But he still ended the season as the 67th ranked player. He was 72nd the year before, so it was actually an improvement. Still only played an extra half a minute more, scored better, but what happened is his crazy efficiency, which is always going to struggle to keep up, 43% shooting as a rookie from 3, that dropped down to 37, a true shooting drop from 59 down to 55. I think that the 59 is not who Tatum is. The 55 probably isn't quite who he is either, but that needs to come back up. But everything else was fairly similar. Average rebounds, average assists, average steals, average blocks, average threes, and for as good of a three-point shooter as he is, his volume is still very, very low. Only 3.9 attempts per game last season. Now, with Kyrie Irving gone, Terry Rozier gone, Al Horford gone, replaced by Kemba Walker and Enes Kanter, that's still not enough to replace those guys. Tatum's value and his role in the offense has to take a step up. Only 22% usage last season. That needs to improve. But I still don't know if the rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, and his three-point volume will actually take that big of a step forward. But I think he's in line for a real chance at the top 50. And out of any of these guys, out of him, say Markkanen, Mitchell, Fox, Simmons even, Tatum is the one that I could see taking that big step up, maybe outside of Collins. And if everything did fall his way, he could very easily take that step. He only averaged 16 points a game. If he averaged 20 points per game next season in a very Rudy Gay-esque stat line, he needs to shoot more threes. But that's a real possibility that he could get to that level and then maybe push into the second round. And a much better roto guy than head-to-head Jayson Tatum, in my opinion. The new Locked On NFL is on fire. Last week, one of the most listened to NFL shows with the expert analysis of the former NFL scout Matt Williamson, and now hosted by Brian Peacock. Locked On NFL is your national daily podcast on all things NFL. Matt's unique take on the game. Follow Locked On NFL now on your favorite podcast provider. The next guy we take a look at is someone who I don't think will take that step forward this year, and that is Jarrett Allen of the Brooklyn Nets. A little bit disappointing last season, Allen. I thought 29 to 30 minutes was going to be what he would play. He didn't, only 26 minutes a night. Kenny Atkinson, it was frustrating in terms of how he used him. He still snuck in to be a top 100 guy, but by the end of draft season last year, Jarrett Allen, when all the initial ADPs come out, he had a draft spot of about 150, 170, which was ridiculous. By the end of draft season, his ADP came all the way into 53, and that's really why it's key that when people write and talk about things like sleepers, he was a massive sleeper at the beginning of draft season, but then by the time we got into the start of October, he was someone I was saying, you know what, this ADP has come in too far. There's no value in him anymore. And the same thing happened with Johnny Collins, who had an ADP outside the top 100 and came into 51 before the season and ended up exactly at that spot. So there is always risks with those guys who are the real, dogs balls type sleepers where everyone's going, that's wrong, that's clearly wrong. And then the ADP just smashes in when Yahoo updates their numbers. Not sure why they update them so aggressively. And then they come in and it changes the value proposition. So Allen now also has to deal with the fact that he only played 26 minutes a game last season, and DeAndre Jordan's around. Now, Allen's a better player than DeAndre Jordan in my opinion, but this is not boding well for his minutes. And if he fell outside the top 100, I think he probably will, Jarrett Allen, this season. I still like him as a last round pick, a 12th and 11th round pick, but definitely not going any higher than that. One guy I think could take one of the biggest leaps, actually the next two players could take two of the biggest leaps, I believe, out of these third-year players, is Lonzo Ball, now of the New Orleans Pelicans. He comes in as a starting point guard, played 30 minutes a game last season, and had to share a lot of those ball handling duties with LeBron James. So we saw his assist rate go from 7.6 assists per game down to 6.5 in per 36 minutes. So that's a significant drop. The other thing that happened with Lonzo to hurt his value is his block rate almost was cut in half from 0.9 down to 0.5. And one of Lonzo's big features as a fantasy basketball player is as a shot blocking point guard. The other things, his efficiency actually did improve. He went from 36% from the field to 41. It's not excellent, but it still means that you took his true shooting from 44 to 49. That's what we look for from these second-year guys, to see their true shooting increase. Now, can he do it again? His three-pointers went from 31 to 33. Can he take that to 36? Can the two-pointers it went from 42 to 48. Can that go to 50? They're all possibilities. The free throw shooting remains laughably bad. He went from 45% as a rookie down to 42. That is unparalleled as a guard to be that bad from the free throw line. He was not that bad at UCLA from the free throw line. He wasn't great, but he was like a 60-70% guy. So I think there is still hope for him to have, if he came out with a 20 percentage point increase in free throw percentage, it wouldn't be outrageous to me. I wouldn't be banking on it, but it wouldn't be outrageous. So I think that there's a real chance that Lonzo, who as a rookie was the 58th ranked player, averaging 10, 7, and 7, shooting 36%. I think there's a real chance that even if he came in and averaged 10, 7, and 7 again, but shot the same field goal percentage that he did last year, then he's already a top 40 guy. Is that outrageous to say Lonzo will be 10, 7, and 7 with 1.7 steals, 0.8 blocks, and 1.7 threes, but doing it on 42% instead of 36%? If those numbers come to fruition, then he is a top 50, top 40 guy. And overall, with the way that Lonzo's game is, he absolutely has top 20 upside. Oh, he can't shoot. Worst shot. Yes, but that's fantasy basketball is not judged on the aesthetics of your shot. It's judged on can you put up numbers in these other categories. And I think Lonzo's going to have that opportunity this season. Of course, the injuries could be a problem for him, which we need to pay attention to. The other guy who I think can take that big step forward. Bam Bam Adebayo is the starting center for the Miami Heat. Will play, I'd say, 30 minutes minimum. Now, ADPs, as I said, haven't come out, but he is, there's a couple of things. He's either going to be the overhyped sleeper that everyone's on and is going to have an ADP in the top 50, or he's going to come in from the people who have got their fingers up their assholes at other sites looking at their ADPs initially, and they're going to rank him 140th and not make that adjustment. And then he's going to be the guy that everyone drafts, and then he comes in way too far, Jarrett Allen, John Collins style, by the time we get to October. So there's those couple of ways that Bam could go. But over the last 28 games of last season, he played 26 minutes a game, and he was the 69th ranked player.
Giggity.
Now, he's going to play more than 26 minutes a night this season. He will be, I am extremely confident that he will be a top 50 player next season. He shoots well. 58% from the field last year. 74 from the line, including 78% over those final 28 games. He shot 33% in those final 28 games from three as well, with a true shooting of 64%. That's a 7 percentage point rise as a rookie, or where he was from a rookie. In fact, his overall season went from 57 as a rookie to 62 as a second-year guy. Can that maintain at 64? Why not? All it's going to require is him to remain a 78% free throw shooter. He can rebound the ball. He can pass the ball. He can block shots and he can get steals. Now, his blocks weren't huge last year, 0.8 blocks, but he still had 0.9 steals. So he could be a guy getting a steal and a block per game. 3-point shooting isn't quite there. Now, the percentages are okay. It was really limited attempts. I think that's probably more of fourth or fifth year thing for Adebayo to be a 3-point shooter, but it will come at some point, and he is almost definitely, to me, going to be a top 50 player this season. Give him 31 minutes a night and averaging 14 and 11 with 3 assists, 1.2 steals, 1 block a game on those excellent percentages. Again, making him a better head-to-head and roto guy versus a points guy. So if you're in a points league, Bam's value is not as high as what it is in a category league, but he, to me, is one of these guys that's going to take a really, really big step forward. The next player we look at, I'm going just down on where they ranked last season. The future MVP, Kyle Kuzma, 112th overall ranked player last year. His ADP was ridiculous at the time. It was 75. It obviously turned out to be ridiculous. This is a guy that's had so many Dutch rudders given to him across the NBA community, across the fantasy community. Still has never had a top 100 fantasy season. His shooting really regressed, much like Jayson Tatum. The numbers he put up with as a rookie seemed crazy, and that's why I was continually saying this won't stick, this won't stick. It stuck for a whole year, and I looked dumb, but then as a second year player, he shot 30% from 3. That's obviously not good. Now, to be fair to Kuzma, his true shooting stayed the same because he took his 2-point percentage from 51 to 55%. His free throws went from 71 to 75. I think he probably sits back into the mid 30s in terms of 3-point percentage, but the 33 minutes a game he got last season, the 25% usage he got last season, will any of that be able to stick with Anthony Davis in now? I'm not sure that Kuzma even starts for this team, and I'm pretty confident he's not going to play 33 minutes a night. So to me, him taking that big step forward, where's it going to come? Yes, I do think that the 3-point shooting will come back up, but I think that will be offset by a reduction in minutes, and the fact that his rebounds are subpar, bad assists, really low steals, and horrible block numbers make him, to me, a real fringy back-end type of a player who may still be inflated by that Lakers mystique that people love about him, and the fact that he just wants to be Kobe Bryant so bad, so people are real Turkish gripping him a lot of the time, and I don't think it's justified in terms of his on-court play, and especially in his fantasy value. The next player is a really interesting one with so much uncertainty with this team. That's Derek White of the San Antonio Spurs. 123rd ranked overall player last season, and did that while playing only 26 minutes a night. Over the final 33 games of last season, where he played 28 minutes a night, he got into the top 90, the 88th ranked player, and did it while scoring just 11 points per game. But DeJounte Murray is coming back, so where is Derek White going to sit? Ideally, you'd look at this guy who put up some really good numbers in the playoffs. Had I think a 35-point game in the playoffs against the Nuggets, and you go, shit, that's excellent for a guy that basically he in his rookie season played 140 minutes. So this was pretty much his rookie season. But now with Murray coming back, with Pat Mills still there, with Lonnie Walker potentially ascending, with Bryn Forbes in that backcourt mix, DeMar DeRozan, can he take those minutes up from 26 a game and solidify at 30? I reckon it's going to be pretty tough, especially with the way that Popovich was in and out on him pretty much all of last season. Like Lonzo Ball, one of his big values is getting blocks. Over those final 33 games, he blocked a shot a game, he got a steal a game, and had 4.5 assists. He shot only 34% from 3, and that's a problem for him and for Murray as to who can be that 3-point shooter. But he's relatively efficient from the field, a good 2-point shooter, 53% there overall. But I just worry about the return of Murray and how that's going to impact what White's minutes are. To me, a late round pick, I really like the guy. I think there's a real chance he can be better than Murray. But the real crunch here in the playing time in that backcourt for San Antonio is a little bit of a concern. The 12th best second year guy last season was Big Tom Bryant of the Washington Wizards, who was 124th ranked overall last season. Much like Bam Adebayo, he feels like he's going to be an absolute top 50 lock. He started the second half of last season, but Scotty Brooks was really stingy in terms of giving him the minutes. It made no sense. Brooks was giving 40 minutes to Brad Beal and then 23 minutes to Tom Bryant, but Jabari Parker's gone. Punch Bob Shitbloke, Bobby Portis is out of town. Dwight Howard is not there. Tom Bryant is their starting center and should be approaching 28 to 30 minutes a night. Now, in the last 15 games of last season, he played 28 minutes a night, averaged 14 and 9, 1.2 blocks on 60 and 72% for a true shooting of 66. That was good enough to get him into the top 80. 30 minutes a night, can that get him into the top 50? Probably. Would I take Bam Adebayo over him? Yes, I would. But Bryant, I think, is going to have a big season. There's no one there to really challenge him in terms of minutes. They committed to him in this offseason. He's 22 years of age. Defense does struggle, but can be a three-point shooting, shot blocking, scoring, rebounding, and super efficient big man. And much like Adebayo, that value, being a good free throw shooter and a good field goal percentage guy, is massively important in category leagues, especially roto leagues, more so than in points leagues. But he should jump up. The guys who are ahead of him, like White and Kuzma and Jarrett Allen, he should jump ahead of all of those players for this coming season, his third year in the NBA. The next guy we talk about is Johnny Isaac. You know that I love John Isaac of the Orlando Magic. Started for the majority of last season, but only 27 minutes a night. His rookie season was basically lost, much like Derek White didn't play that much, only 530 minutes, which is way more than Derek White played as a rookie. But this year, got 75 games in, 27 minutes a night. His value comes from those steals and blocks. Now, his steal and block rate, both of those decreased pretty significantly, mainly because he was playing out of position. And I think he'll do it again this year, playing as a small forward. That shouldn't impact his steal numbers that much, but it did. They went down from 2.2 steals per 36 to 1.1, so completely cut in half. While the blocks went from 2 down to 1.7. At Florida State, Isaac had those great steal numbers as well, very similar to his rookie number. So I think that they will come back up. The shooting, 32% from 3, there's a concern there. Overall field goal percentage of 43 is a bit of a worry, but the free throw shooting was strong. I still think he can become a better three-point shooter than that. I like him as a late round pick, but will he be able to take this step up? Well, the extra 2 or 3 minutes he should be getting, and I feel pretty confident that he will be getting them, is key, but it's all going to come down to those steal numbers, and steals can wildly vary your overall fantasy value. If that goes back to 1.5 steals per game instead of 0.8 steals per game, then he goes from the 125th ranked guy to the 70th ranked guy, and that's not including even more minutes or him scoring 12 points per game and getting those other numbers up. So there's a clear path for John Isaac to become a much better fantasy guy, and this is going to be the season that he's going to have that opportunity again. Let's see where it goes. I'm a bit iffy with it though. There's a whole bunch of other players. I'm not going to go through all of these guys in as much detail going through this list here. Dennis Smith Jr., I worry about what the Knicks are doing with him, much like I worry about what they did with Frank Ntilikina and Alfred Payton coming in. That limits what Smith can do, I believe. Monty Morris was excellent last season for the Nuggets, but the opportunity is just going to be limited this year. One guy I do want to touch on here is the Duck, Luke Kennard in Detroit. I don't think he's going to start, but he's going to play a lot of minutes in that second unit with Derrick Rose. Started games in the playoffs, looked good. He is absolutely a late round flyer who's going to have that opportunity to really step up and get that efficiency up. And the other guy, of course, is Zach Collins of the Portland Trailblazers. Now, he is dealing with a torn ankle ligament. It shouldn't impact his start for the season, but with the fact that they have no forwards on this roster, he is the starting power forward. He should see that playing time go from 18 all the way up close to 30. And even in 18 minutes last year, he was the 252nd ranked player, averaging 6 and 4 with 0.9 blocks. Now, could he go in and average 11 and 8 with 1.7 blocks, with 0.7 steals and hit 1.2 threes? I think that Collins can do that. I think that he is going to jump up significantly. I think there's a real chance he finishes ahead of both Jarrett Allen and Kyle Kuzma as well, and he could be a top 100 guy. A couple of other third-year guys that we just have to mention. Markelle Fultz, who knows what the hell's going to happen with him. Probably not a guy I want to look at this point in a standard league draft. Malik Monk, there's a massive opportunity in Charlotte for a starting shooting guard. It looks like it'll be the Baconator in that position, who to me he's a low upside, inefficient scorer. Monk can do more, but the ability for him to actually do that, or his aptitude and application to the game, is in doubt. But there is an opportunity there for him. Guys like Bacon's another third year player who's going to have a big opportunity. I think Bacon probably is worth more of a late round pick than Monk, because I think that opportunity is like 75% in his favor. But outside of scoring, he doesn't tend to do too much more. Comically low steal and block numbers from Bacon, assist and rebound numbers as well. He's more of a points and threes sort of a player. Jordy Bell probably going to have a larger role in Minnesota, but with Karl Anthony Towns and Bob Covington likely the 4 and the 5. But again, if they go with Covington back to the 3 and Wiggins at the 2, pushing both Culver and Okogie to the bench, then Bell, maybe he's a starting power forward. Probably isn't, but he could easily jump ahead of Gorgie Dieng. And in 22 minutes a night, there is some value, especially for deeper leagues. Dylan Brooks missed all of last season, probably going to be the starting shooting guard for Memphis. I don't really rate Brooks as a fantasy guy, but some people do, so he's at least a name to pay attention to. You're looking at Tony Bradley in Utah, who I talked about yesterday on the Summer League show, put up some pretty big numbers. And Josh Jackson, who was atrocious last season, played 25 minutes a night. There is an opportunity for him in Memphis, again, with Dylan Brooks being that shooting guard. I don't have that trust in Jackson being able to actually become a good NBA player, but maybe this trade wakes him up. But it probably doesn't. The hitman Josh Hart in New Orleans now, I just don't see the large enough opportunity. Same with Damo Dotson for the Knicks, another guy who was a bit surprising last season, but with Reggie Bullock, with the Duke Wayne Ellington, with RJ Barrett all coming in to take those minutes, it seems unlikely that he's going to have that spot. And of course, the Jedi.
Hello there.
How could I forget OG Anunoby, whose season last year was pretty disappointing, but now Kawhi's gone, Danny Green's gone. Does he move into the starting small forward job? He needs to start doing stuff in terms of providing defensive numbers. That's where his value is going to come from. Just 0.7 steals and 0.3 blocks last season. Now, he averaged a lot of blocks as a college player at Indiana, but he's 2 years in the NBA. 0.3 blocks per 36, atrocious. That's Evan Fournier level of atrocious. And then last year, doubled it, but still at 0.6. That needs to get to 1.2 per 36. He needs to get to 1.6 steals per 36, and then he starts cracking in to the standard league type value. Only averaged 12 points per 36 minutes and shot 33% from three and an atrocious free throw percentage. So he's a long way off, and I'm not sure his game's necessarily going to come around this season. So there are a bunch of third-year guys that I can see, or what can they do? A lot of these guys are going to take big steps forward. Johnny Collins, Foxy, Mitchell, Simmons, Markkanen, Tatum, Lonzo, Bam Bam, Big Tom Bryant, Johnny Isaac, Luke Kennard, Zach Collins, a bunch of guys that can take big steps forward this season. Make sure you are subscribed to this podcast, whether it's on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, and leave me a 5-star review. It's a great way to show that I'm doing something right with this show and that you're enjoying it. Tell your friends, share it around, leave a comment on YouTube, give me a thumbs up, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Follow me on Instagram. Also, I did an Instagram live yesterday. I'm going to do a few more of those, answering your questions. Locked On Fantasy Basketball over on Instagram. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Reggie Bullock.